Come on down, step right in, Carole's Kitchen where we begin. See what's cooking, something new, plant-based power just for you. Delicious meals on every plate, healthy choices feeling great, inspiration in every dish, taste the magic, it's our wish. Power to the plants we sing, health for you, it's everything. Cooking up a storm in there, Carole's Kitchen, love and care. Education one bite at a time, nourishing the heart and mind. Join the journey, let's unite. Pure plant power feels so right. Power to the plants we sing. Health for you, it's everything. Cooking up a storm in there, Carole's Kitchen, love and care.
Welcome, everyone. So many new beginnings today. If you want, in the chat, how many of you noticed the music this afternoon? Welcome, everyone, to Cooking with Chef Carole, a show sponsored by Plant-Powered Metro New York. My name is Wendy Sachs. I'm on the board of Plant-Powered Metro New York, and I am very happy to welcome you all to our series, Cooking with Chef Carole. We're co-sponsored today by the Marlene Meyerson JCC, and so welcome to the JCC members and welcome to all of our loyal members. Plant-Powered Metro empowers people to achieve better health and overcome chronic disease through a whole food, plant-based approach to nutrition. We offer evidence-based education, resources, and a grassroots network of support to create community and inspire change. And together as leaders, organizers, and educators, we raise awareness about the dramatic health benefits of whole food plant-based nutrition. We empower individuals to make their own lifestyle adjustments. We lead projects that spark changes in food policy, practice, and food culture. Or you could just listen to our theme song and understand what we're all about. This is a new theme song for us today on our 5th anniversary. Before I go any further, we have another special event right now, which is I'd like to introduce to you the co-founder of Plant-Powered Metro New York, our very own Liana Levine-Reisner. Liana.
Hello, Wendy. It's so great to be here. I don't think I have been live on a Cooking with Chef Carole since its inception, which is pretty ludicrous because this show has been going on now for 5 full years. And I'm here because, first of all, I have to say a huge thank you to our Cooking with Chef Carole team, to Chef Carole herself, to Wendy, and to Jim Spellos, who's been behind the scenes, and David, who was a great partner on Cooking with Chef Carole for so many years prior. Happy 5th anniversary to our team. This is actually the 6th anniversary year of Plant-Powered Metro New York and 5 years going strong with Chef Carole. So I have to say, let me tell you a little bit of the genesis of this show for those who may be newer to our cooking show here. 5 years ago, this month, we all were going through lockdown. And what was fascinating, we have our friends here from the JCC in Manhattan. We had just offered up our 4th Jumpstart program, hosted live at the JCC. Chef Carole was our culinary educator for that program. She had just taken a group out to a market tour, which is a feature of our programs, to just get down and dirty and get to see that produce fresh and go through and look at some options. And we had to shut down just like everyone else and go virtual. And early on, like within the first few days of knowing that we needed to pivot, I asked Chef Carole, I said, would you do this online? And she came back to me on March 17th with an email that I just read. I just dug it up and it said, yes, I would love to. And guess what? I have a little bit extra time on my hands right now and I need something to do. So this would be so meaningful and wonderful. And yes, it became an institution. It became something that we can all love and enjoy every month. We only have skipped a month here and there just in the summertime so that folks can enjoy their vacations. But Chef Carole is still going strong, and there's so much that you can take away every single month from these fantastic demos and the recipes that she offers to all of us. Some of her own original recipes, as you know, some of them are adapted from some of the greats that are out there online and in cookbooks. So without further ado, I just want to say, again, huge thank you. If you are somebody watching live who has appreciated Chef Carole for all 5 years, give a shout out in the comments because we want to know who you are. I see Carol Klowanski here, and of course, Lynn Diamond. And I know there are others who are watching our show who have been here for a long while. And I do want to encourage you to help us keep this going strong by making a donation. You can text to the number on your screen, text PPMNY to 44321. Make a gift that way, and it's really easy. Help us help Carole and help us help the organization keep this going. All right, so I'll be quiet now. It's time for some cooking. Wendy, what's up next? We got to unmute you.
Yes, sorry, I was really just saying thank you, Liana. Oh my God, what a treat to have you here and have you keep inspiring us really every day. So yeah, we've become an institution, at least at Plant Power Metro New York, which is just such a delight. So thank you everybody for the good birthday wishes. And as Liana said, please feel free to show your support so we can keep the show going. I'm beginning to sound like a PBS commercial, I realized, PBS and MTR, but that's fine. We're just PPMNY, another set of initials. Anyway, and a special hello to Carol from Maryland also, who has not missed one show from the beginning. So onwards with the show. It's March. There's in New York, the farmers markets are still showing winter things. So, but there's plenty of them. I think everyone's looking forward to the spring harvest, but at the moment we're still seeing carrots and beets and cabbage and kale and onions and sort of heartier fare. And as usual, we encourage you to buy organic and even better regenerative vegetables if you can get them. And we will be, Carol will be demonstrating our own or her own hearty soups, but with a little spring twist, and using cauliflower today. And so I was just going to add one tiny little fun fact about cauliflower, which is it's part of the cruciferous family, and it converts its compounds in a way that seems to inhibit cancer cells. So along with kale, cauliflower is one of those superfoods, as Dr. Furman would say. And another little fun thing is that it was all the rage in the court of French King Louis XIV, where it was served in rich and elegant dishes. This is from his book, 100 Best Foods. And yeah, you can get all kinds of fun facts about the foods and the history of what we're eating today. So I think because, yeah, I'll just mention a couple of upcoming events as I usually do. Please everyone go online to the Plant Powered Metro website where you can find details on this, but we have some super fun events this month. One is several in-person events with Dr. Nandita Shah. Some of you may already know who she is. She's a doctor from India who founded a wonderful organization called Sharon in 2005 with the help of, in order to help with the aim of helping people heal themselves and the planet by connecting to animals and nature. And she will be in New York and doing several events in Long Island, in New Jersey, in New York. I'll spare the details here just in the event of time. Let's see, we have a presentation coming up on reversing. Oh, that may be Dr. Nandita Shah. Sorry, I'm just going through this list here. We have a virtual event March 27th for families. It's session 4 out of 4, and it's from noon to 2 on March 27th. And March 29th, we have a reversal of lifestyle disease program in Rego Park, New York. And then March 31st, a dinner social. We're trying to create community with in-person events. And then we have a new Plant Powered Metro and JCC event on April 1st at 6:30 called Your Spring Toolkit for Achieving a Healthy Weight with Dr. Danaev. This is both in person and virtual. So that's our spring, really a kind of kickoff event with the JCC. So please let us know where you're from in the chat. Ask questions in the chat. Carol and I will do our best to answer as we go along, but if we don't get to it, we usually allow time at the end, and if not, then we just do as many as we can. And if you're enjoying the show, please put a like on YouTube or Facebook. Okay, Carol, what's on the menu today?
Oh my God, it's so exciting. We're such a, my heart is beating fast. And Liana came, she hasn't been here forever. Lynn is present. Carol Kolowski, who never misses, is present. And we've got the team here always. And I'm just very excited and almost started to have tears in my eyes, thinking all the good work that we've done all these years and how I've never once repeated myself. There are times when I want to repeat myself because I want to go back to something that I love, which I think we're going to do next month, actually. I think we're going to have Mexican and we're going to make tortillas. But I have not repeated myself in all these years, and hard to remember, Wendy, but we did do this twice a month during the pandemic, and it's hard to imagine how we did it, but we were available, and we just felt it was important to be healthy, more, like to keep your immunity and to, like eat those plants. We just wanted that message to not be forgotten at that time. And here we are still. So we're making two things today, only two, usually three, but two today. And I'm going to start with the dessert, okay? And I just want to preface, and I always do this, and I just want to really say that we are making whole food, plant-based, no sugar, no oil, and no salt dessert, okay? But dessert is still dessert. It is not meant to be eaten all the time. It is not meant to gulp down. It is a sliver of a sweet to satisfy your sweet tooth or to have a special occasion, which we are doing today. But it is still high in fat. It has calories. So just because you're making a whole food plant-based dessert, please keep those things in mind. To not eat half of a tart or a half of a double layer chocolate cake just because it's whole food plant-based. It's full of calories, and like everything, every dessert, it does contain some fat. Okay, so we're gonna start with the crust. It's a no-bake crust, which I love. It's like a brownie crust. Then we're gonna put that in the refrigerator. Then we're gonna start the soup, and then we're gonna go back to the dessert. So you'll follow along and ask questions. Wendy and I always leave room for questions, but let's get started. So both the recipes I have today are slightly adapted. Maybe I've taken out the salt. Maybe in the soup I've taken out salt and oil. And I've maybe rearranged the directions of how to do something, because sometimes they write things up and they don't quite make sense to me. So I've rewritten some of the directions. So let's just start with what we're going to do. And we need to make the brownie crust. Now, first of all, what are we putting this tart in? I have a tart pan, and I have many of these tart pans, and it has a removable bottom. Okay. This recipe calls for 8-inch tart pan, and I only have a 7-inch. And I have a 9-inch. I don't own an 8-inch. And if you're running out to the store to buy one, please buy 8 inches, because 8 inches is actually kind of standard, okay? But if you're not owning a tart pan, then you can make this tart in a pie pan, okay? And that is like here. Like a pie pan. It could be a metal pie pan. It could be a foil pie tin, but it's not going to have a removable bottom. So for certain, you're going to make it in a pie pan, and then you're going to cut it, and it's going to come out from here. Later, we'll show you that the good thing about the removable bottom is it allows the crust and everything to pop out. And there's something really good about having that removable bottom. Okay, so we're going to make the smaller tart, which means that we might have a little leftover crust and a little leftover filling, or we might have a little thicker crust than if we were using an 8-inch tart. But things, you can be flexible, okay? You have to, recipes, as we've always talked about, are a guide, and we don't always have exactly what things are called for. So in this particular recipe, it says to grease the pan. Well, we're not greasing it with anything because we're not using any spray or oil or butter. And so, but it does say that you should line the pan with some paper. So I've cut a circle. I just traced a circle. And usually when I trace a circle, I trace it with a pencil, and then I cut inside the line. And this particular piece of paper was folded into like small and then I cut it, and then it fits exactly. Now, that doesn't mean you need to do that all the time when you're making a tart, but this recipe requested that. Okay, so that is that. So we're going to use, like any good baking recipe, the recipe was given in grams, and you really want to have a scale. That is the most accurate. Baking is a science. You want to have things exactly accurate. There's no room. It's not like cooking a marinara sauce or a soup when you can have a little more of this and a little less of that. It is really important to be accurate, and having a scale is most accurate. But the recipe also provided measure cups and tablespoons. And so you don't have to weigh everything, but it is ultimately ideal to weigh everything. So I've weighed 225 grams, and I have pecans here actually. You can use walnuts, pecans, any kind of nut. If you are somehow allergic to nut, you actually probably absolutely could use sunflower seeds. But this is 2 cups and a quarter. Okay, so that's a lot, but that's going to be our base. And we're going to grind it. And there's a little bit of a fine line. We want to make it a crumb, but we don't want to make it into like a butter. So you have to watch it. So it's going to be noisy for just 1 minute. And I'm going to pulse it. And as soon as it starts being crumbs, that's what you want. Fine crumbs. And again, there's a fine line here because the oil starts to come out of the nut, especially if you were using walnuts, and it would leak out. And soon you've added probably a lot of what would be too much oil to the batter. So you just want it into crumbs. Then what we're going to do is we need to have 1.5 cups of pitted dates that we've soaked. Now, I've been soaking these for a couple hours, these dates, so that they become really, really, really soft. And I took the pits out and I put them in water. And right now I'm going to drain them. And I always save this water. And I'm laughing to myself at the moment because I remember the first time I went to Leona's house to help her just stock up, and I was just like, we should make date paste because we're not having sugar, and we need to have date paste in the refrigerator all the time. And I remember doing that for Leona, and it was one of those, I don't know, early in the run kind of things. So I'm just squeezing that out, and I'm going to save this water. This water is sugary water, and there's a lot of things you could do with it. You could boil it and put ginger and lemon and make like a little kind of flavored hot drink for yourself. Sometimes you need to add a little sweetener to marinara. So this is sweet water, and I'm just going to put it aside, but definitely don't throw it down the sink, okay? So the dates are going in there, and then we're going to put 2 tablespoons, but she says it's 15 grams of cocoa powder, and I'm using cacao. Let me just show you. We've talked a lot on the show about difference between cocoa and cacao, but I'm using this Navitas cacao powder. It's the brand that I like, and it's pretty, you can get it. It's very accessible and easy to get. So I'm going to put what are the 15 grams or the 2 tablespoons. Okay, that's going in there. And now we're going to pulse that, and it's going to become like a brownie. It's going to be delicious. Okay, and I see that it's already starting to come together, but it needs to come together a little more. It's still just a little bit dry. And I really don't like that I have all this savory stuff here and sweet stuff at the same time on the counter. But you see, this is really nice, and you can pinch it and it's staying together. Okay, that's what you want. Ideally, you want it to hold together. And just eating this, I mean, that you have to get it into a pan, but one could just practically make balls out of this, roll it in cocoa, and you would have super yummy little snacks, little cocoa balls, little balls that would be delicious. Now we're probably going to have a little more batter here, a little more crust, because again, my pan is a slightly smaller, but that's okay. I have lots of small tart pans, and what I'm going to start to do now is to push this in. Now, the key here is to keep your hands a little bit moist, a little bit wet. Here is a date that did not get mushed up. I'm going to take that out. Okay. And this paper is wanting to move around. I'm not used to having paper in the pan. That is not, I don't know why. Maybe that is next time I make it, maybe I won't do that. Okay. And I'm going to get a bowl where I can just dip my fingers in, because things are in a sticky situation here, and having a little bit of moisture on your hands. Now, I find it's good to pat out the bottom first, okay? That's what we're doing, patting out the bottom. You want it to feel even, okay? That's a really important thing, so you don't have high spaces and low spaces. You want it to all be even. And I see another little piece of date here. Okay, and this is going in this pan. Any little batter, I do have tiny little pans that are for tart pans, and probably the extra dough that I have later when we're not trying to do so many things, I will actually use the extra batter. Now what I'm doing is I'm going around the sides, okay? It might be hard for you to see, but I am just creating the sides and pushing everything, and I'm feeling the whole time, I'm feeling, is this even? Does it feel like there are high and low spots? And we're almost around the whole thing. It's really quite great, actually, that it happens so quickly. And I don't know, I love cooking with children so much, and this would be an awesome thing for young kids to do, because it essentially is patting it in. Now, when you're using a little bit of water, you're trying not to add water to the crust, right? You're just keeping your hands moist. You don't want to, and this is now climbing up and kind of coming over the top. And so what I'm doing now is I'm actually trimming the top a little bit so that I'm at the edge of the pan, okay? And we have just a, we don't have too much extra crust, not too much. And we want the walls to be somewhat, I would say, a 1/4 inch thick, because it's going to hold the filling. And we're not baking this at all today. It's not going into the oven. So we want about a 1/4 inch, and I'm making sure that it's all kind of even on the sides. And look, I have just a little bit left. Look at how much I have left. That is really later going to make a tiny little individual tart that I will share with, I don't know, a special person tomorrow. I'm not sure who, but we're not going to bother with that now. And we're just going to trim the top of this. And sometimes I do take, let me just wash my hands for 1 minute. I often have like little pieces of saran wrap, or sometimes I have plastic. Now, this is still my New York style dishwasher here, where I love keeping things in the dishwasher. I don't really use the dishwasher, as you can see. This is my style of still living in New York. I'm very happy about not using my dishwasher. I'm just one person, and I don't have a million dishes, so I just hand wash. But look, I'm just going to use a piece of plastic, and so my hand, and just pat down everything so that it becomes even. because you really, like I said, you don't want fat and thin and all that. That is feels really good and looks really good. And that looks really good. And that is the crust. Now we do need to refrigerate this. And so we're just going to put this in the refrigerator. It's a little taller here. I'm going to actually trim it where it's taller and coming above. But you can imagine if you were using a pie pan that doesn't have this kind of edge, you'll just want to bring it up the side and just make it so that it looks even, right? That's ultimately what you want to do. And like I said, this little bit of dough, we're going to put right now, I'm going to take this date out of here, and we're going to put this little bit of dough and we're going to save it. And it's going to make a tiny little chocolate gift later. And this will get washed out because we do need to use that again. And then this is going to go in the refrigerator. Okay, and let me dry my hands. And that is the simple brownie crust. And where the side bottom meets the side, you really want to just get it all kind of so that it's even. So that's what that looks like. Can everybody see? That is a good view, Wendy, I think, of what things look like.
It's absolutely gorgeous, and the ease with which you were able to just press it into the pie pie thing container is was really amazing, because I have often gotten stuck making it all even, but you just you did it like a professional, Carol.
I don't
Oh,
know how that could be. But this is going to go in the fridge now because ultimately we want it to be very cold. And
cool.
and so we're going to now like put it in the fridge and we're going to let it get cold. Hopefully it gets cold enough, you know. We are always dealing with limited time here in the demos, so I always hope everything works out. You never know. And if it
Quick
doesn't,
question, actually, while
yes.
I have your attention, where do you order your dates from? I know you tend to order
Oh,
them in bulk from California.
I do. I add them. I like them from this place called Shield Steaks. It's only because my friend Mark, who made our song, our new brand new song,
Yes.
he lives in Palm Springs. And in India, right next to Palm Springs, is where they grow. They're the biggest capital of all dates. And so I order. He actually sends me dates from Shields. But and they're so fresh when they come from that part of the country. They are just like beyond fresh, you know.
Are they organic, Carol? Or
um they don't have organic. So and there's another place near Indio, but you can easily just Google organic dates. And I do think that it's nice to have them in bulk. And he sends me sometimes a 5-pound box, and I actually bag them into little bags, and I stack them flat, and they go right into the freezer.
Ex-
So because it costs money when you're buying them all the time at the store. Do you know? You're
definitely.
paying like $8 for every pound. The deadlit Nor dates work fine for baking. They're just harder. And so you know, over the medjool dates. And the fun part about ordering dates from a place is so many dates have different tastes that it's kind of fun to try different kinds because some are very caramely, some are very, you know, they all taste different. And it's kind of a fun thing to get in a habit of doing. But that's only if you're like me, who is constantly baking. Any other questions, Wendy, right
Well,
this moment?
there was a question, an unusual one, I thought, but a good question. How long do you keep water in the fridge, but to keep it fresh? I mean, I tend to keep my water in the fridge for a long time.
I do keep it, but you know what? I drink the water all the time.
Me too.
Like I'm constantly, you mean just drinking water, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that because I drink so much water. I live in New Mexico and I'm always afraid I'm going to shrivel up and dry up like a prune here. Like I literally drink so much water that I don't know. Like, and when I'm not drinking so much water, because I'm not always good, Wendy, I'm not always good. Then I set a goal with my colleague at work, and we look at each other and we say, we have a, this much, we have a container, and we don't chug it, but we kind of check in with each other
Great idea.
so that we're both accountable, right? So when I leave work, I feel like, okay, I have drank the water I'm supposed to today. Everything else is extra now, do you know?
Right. That's
But
so good. And by the way, permission to be human. We all are. So
yeah, and not every day are you perfect, right? Like days I'm really good about everything, and days I'm lose my act on everything, So I do worry about drying up here. I'm in the desert, and I do worry about my skin drying up and things, and also just you don't want to be there are long distances here when I drive, so you just have to have the water because it's dry, and that's what the desert is. So anybody had
that's
any
it.
questions about
That's it.
no? So, okay, well, we will come back to the dessert for certain, but we're already halfway, like half an hour in, and I haven't even started the soup. So we must get that started, okay? Now, all of you who have come regularly have heard me talk a lot about soup, have heard me talk a lot about Deborah Madison, have heard me talk a lot about Melissa Clark. And I love both of them. And I want to say that I didn't go to a school of Melissa Clark or Deborah Madison, but I certainly have cooked hundreds of soups from the both of them. And I saw this recipe just at the end of February in the New York Times from Melissa Clark. And the recipe started off with the spice, and it was coriander, which is like one of my favorite spices. And I'm like, okay, got to make that today. Like, no wasting any time. I'm like, a 1 tablespoon of coriander, I am there. So what I omitted from her recipe was 2 tablespoons of oil and about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. But we are going to make the soup. And I also want to show you and talk about its versatility, okay? Now, in the recipe, she talks about having 5 medium carrots. Now, that's kind of a challenge sometimes when you say 5 medium carrots, because what is medium to me is not going to be medium to you or Wendy or Jim, or everybody doesn't know what a medium carrot is. And I try to buy my carrots so that they're fresh and not in the plastic bag. But this week I bought a big 2-pound bag of carrots, and I had super skinny ones and I had fat ones, and I had ones that were tall and ones that were short. So what does that mean, 5 medium carrots? Well, she claims that it means 1 pound, which I actually really like because I weighed the carrots. I trimmed them and then I weighed them. And she also says you need to cut them into 1/2 inch pieces, and it's going to yield 2 cups. Well, I have cut all the carrots into smaller pieces, and I think I have a little more than 2 cups. So what's going to happen here in this recipe is if we follow it exact, we need 6 cups of water. We might need another 2 cups later of water, or broth if you want it. But the fact is that it's not an exact, right? The recipe is not exact. The other thing that she says that I think will drive some people a little batty and confusing is she says that we need to have one, what does she call it exactly? She says, I'm looking for it where it says it so I know. It says blah blah blah. One small cauliflower, or 1/2 of a large cauliflower. Well, does everybody know what a large cauliflower looks like? I think most people do, because you in the store buying it and you say, oh my God, that's the size of my head. That's a large cauliflower. And then sometimes the cauliflower is small. Today, I left this and I have what I consider to be a smaller cauliflower. So I'm going to use the whole cauliflower today. But again, we're all going to have a little, the yield is going to be a little bit different for each one of us. So I just want you to understand that. It's just like when we talk about garlic. Some garlic is teeny, some garlic is gigantic, like elephant-sized garlic, and some is not. So I'm just cutting up the remainder of this carrots and putting them here. And she says to cut them in 1/2 inch squares. I don't think it really matters because we're going to puree this soup. This soup becomes super velvety and super smooth. So you don't have to make all your cuttings perfect in every way because it's not a chunky soup. It's a smooth soup. And I've cut things really small because I want them to cook during our demo. And I want to really be able to finish the soup today for you. Hopefully I finish the soup for you. In the meantime, this is getting hot, and we talk about what does it mean when it's hot. We put a little bit of water, and it is already hot. And I'm just running the water here. So it's a little noisy. And what we're going to do is, I just wanted to make sure it was hot. We have that 1 tablespoon of coriander. It's whole coriander. If you only have ground, then use the ground. But it's way nicer to roast your cauliflower. Now, if you only have the ground coriander, then just toast it a little bit and then take it back out, okay? But we're going to roast it for a few minutes in this pot. You could do it in another skillet. I'm going to finish cutting this cauliflower. I left it whole here so you would see that it's not such a big one. And this becomes compost, okay? It is not part of our broth. You know, when we put away things in the freezer for broth. The other thing that I super love about this recipe is that it doesn't call for any stock or broth. And we don't always have that on hand, whether we've bought it from the store or whether we have it in our refrigerators ready to go or freezers. This just calls for water. So I really love that. Now, if you're really inclined and you're a person that like, oh my gosh, just water, what kind of flavors is it going to have? Well, you could use some broth if you'd like. Doesn't matter, but she only calls for water, and I really like that. So I kept it at water because we don't always have the broth or the stock. And I'm just really trying to chop this small so that it cooks, because I'm always worried that we're not going to finish. So here, what I'm going to do is get the pot holders, and it's a little bit heavy, this pot, but we're going to take these out. These are done. They're a little bit smoky already. And we're going to grind those up. There's a few little pieces left in here. How do I get them out? I feel like they're stuck in the bottom of the tin. Okay, there they are. We're going to lower this just a hair. Now, we're going to saute the onions and the garlic. It's 1 onion chopped up. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly cut up. And we're going to have 2 cloves of garlic. I think I used 3 cloves because mine were on the smaller size. We know this pan is hot. We have a little bit of water on the side. Again, if you really want to put broth in it, you could water or broth saute. I'm just going to add a little teeny bit of water. Going to get my spoon, my wooden spoon. And you can see that that's hot. It's creating, and we're just going to stir this, and we're going to get it going so that the onions start to cook and that they become translucent. Okay, and we're just sautéing like we always do. Nothing magical here except that we're not using any oil, right? That's the magic. People, I had a friend over today and she goes, I don't know how you do it without the oil. I said, it's so easy. There's no, it's not even brain surgery or rocket science. It's so easy. Every vegetable has its own natural sugars. And she goes, well, how do you get it brown? How do you get flavorful? Well, if you want to cook these onions so they're brown, you're just going to keep cooking them for at least 10, 15 minutes. We're not doing that at the moment. But the fact is that they have their own natural sugars and they can become brown, just like as if you're cooking with oil. It really does happen. People don't believe until they do it, but it really, you don't need all that oil. You don't need any oil, and it has no health benefits to have that oil. Now we have the coriander, which is whole. And coriander sometimes wants to jump out of the mortar and pestle because it's little round things. But if as soon I can see, there it goes, popping out. It really drives me crazy that it pops out of the thing. But you want to just grind it up. That's what I'm doing. Now, again, if you don't have a mortar and pestle, maybe you don't even have whole coriander, just use the ground coriander. But coriander is a key spice in this recipe. So I want to tell you, you cannot be omitting it. She leads the recipe with 1 tablespoon. I even put a little extra at the end because we're not using 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So we have to get our flavor from the lemons that we're going to put as well as the herbs. Okay, so these are cooking. They're cooking, you see. They're becoming translucent. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our coriander, our full 1 tablespoon. Let's get this into the sink here. And then we're going to add our cauliflower and our carrots. Okay, that's getting in there. Easy, easy, right? And again, I'm reminding you that we're going to just use water. We're only using 6 cups of water, but in the end, we might need another cup or 2 because based on how big my cauliflower was, if Wendy were making this exact same thing right beside me and she went shopping for her own ingredients, her cauliflower might be a little bit bigger than mine. Her carrots might be a little fatter than mine. So she might end up with way more vegetables. Okay, there's no exact measurements here, which is different than the baking. Remember, I said this is okay. This is why this recipe is so versatile. Now, once we add the water, we do also have to add the miso. And miso has a lot of probiotics in it. And I've always learned that it's best not to, rapidly boil miso so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 6 cups of water. And how have I measured these 6 cups? This ball jar is a quart, and a quart has 4 cups. So I did 4 cups here and 2 cups here, and that is the amount of water that is going into the soup. Okay, so that easily goes there. And I love the ball jars. I love them for everything. I've just cooked a pound of beans, and my beans are going to go in a ball jar. My dried grains go into the ball. I must have dozens and dozens of ball jars. And when Wendy and I lived 10 blocks away from each other, we had a ball jar that went back and forth between us with filled things. It was like the Wendy jar that we've talked about before. And it was kind of fun. I always brought Wendy like a little gift in the soup of a ball jar.
Carole, I miss having my meals catered by you. Okay, I usually made a salad, but I miss those days.
I'm forgetting already that I have this cauliflower on top of my cutting board. I usually cut everything ahead of time for us, but I wanted to be able to show everybody what we were dealing with. And I have my lemons over here for the soup, and we're going to need to add 3 tablespoons of miso. And we've showed this before. You can use any kind of miso you like, but I very much like this South River brand. They must have like 10 different kinds. My favorite is chickpea. Melissa here, she actually calls for a white miso. So I have a sweet white miso, and we need a whole 3 tablespoons. So I usually wait for this to really come to a boil, but we're not going to waste any of our time today waiting for things. So I'm just going to put 3 tablespoons of miso in there. And again, this kind of helps make up for the broth that we're not having, right? Because this is going to be where all your flavor is coming from. So you want to have a good miso. And I buy this miso. I used to buy it at the Whole Foods. I don't have a Whole Foods in my town where I live, but thankfully our little co-op carries this brand. And It is expensive, okay? It is expensive, but it is very delicious and it lasts a long time. And the best thing is it yields a wonderful jar that with a black lid that I use for everything. I love these jars. So it's kind of like sometimes I look for things in the grocery store and I'm like, am I going to like that jar? I'll buy that. You know, it's like a little bit crazy. But so this all now needs to come to a boil. I'm going to put a lid on it because we know that that is the fastest way for things to start to boil, right? And ultimately, what we haven't put in the soup is, and I'm going to just look, we need to add some zest. Let's get that zest ready. And we need to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Now, we don't really need to add the, I'm just looking here. We don't need to add the zest or the lemon juice until we've pureed the soup. And the soup is going to have to cook for at least 10 to 15 minutes. So we're going to come back to it, hoping that I've got it boiling. And like I said, ultimately, I very much want to blend this for you today. I'm going to get a zester. We're just going to get our zest ready on our plate. Now, she only calls for a half a teaspoon of lemon zest, but I'm going all forward in that I'm going to use the whole lemon, the whole lemon. Now, in the recipe, it's just the half a teaspoon, but I'm going to use the whole lemon because we have to remember that we altered this recipe and we've taken out 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So somewhere our flavor, how we bring up the flavor has to come from somewhere. And it's going to come from the lemon juice that we're adding. It's going to come from more zest than it's requesting. And we're going to also possibly put in a little more coriander at the end. Possibly. We'll have to see how it all tastes. Now, this is the most heavenly. I wish we had smell-o-vision or smell of something. This is my favorite time of year, everyone. And that I can only talk about it and not show you, but it is Meyer lemon time, where when I lived in California, people had Meyer's lemons growing on trees everywhere, and they would give me bagfuls. I would have endless amounts of, but now I just buy them in the store, a few at a time. So Meyer's lemons are very, they're different. They're very fragrant. They're great for baking. They have a sweetness to them. They still have the acid, like a regular lemon, but they're very, very special. So you can see that I've just peeled all this. You could do it with your microplane as well. That would grate it all. I'm a little old-fashioned. Before the microplanes came out, I always had one of these zesters by hand, and it just gives you all these curly things. And ultimately, I just end up chopping it. Yeah. So this is kind of a little more work doing it this way than zesting it with the microplane. But I kind of, it's a little bit of a habit. And because I'm just sitting here talking to you about lemons and Meyer's lemon, I wanted that beautiful smell that I ended up just zesting it with a normal zester, not a microplane. But you could definitely, now you can see that I have almost a full tablespoon here, almost. And it's up to you. You could use the half a teaspoon that she's recommended, and you could put more in at the end. It's up to you. But I know that we need to bring up the flavor, and I'm adding a little bit more than normal. And besides, if you're already zesting, you might as well just zest the whole thing, not just a little bit of it. And then juice, I have some juice already in a jar that I'm dripping everywhere, but we're just going to move these things off to the side for now because we're pretty much we need to let this cook, and it super needs to come to a boil. Otherwise, we're never going to finish it. And that's where we're at. I'll double check. We're going to finish the soup off with the zest, the lemon. We're going to blend the soup. I usually blend the soup in the Vitamix because I want it to be super creamy, super smooth. But today, just for time's sake and easiness, I thought I would just use the immersion blender and blend it with this. But I do really love putting it into the Vitamix because Vitamix is so high powered. And if you only have a regular blender, that's fine too. And also the reason today that I'm not going to pour the soup, I don't love pouring hot soup into a blender of any sort, even into a food processor. You have to be very careful. Those containers are always made out of plastic. They expand and contract, and you just want to be careful. So because we're doing it in a short amount of time, the soup's going to be very hot. We're just going to use the immersion blender and try to get it as smooth as possible. And I have to tell you, I love this soup so much. I'm a single person. I normally make one pot of soup and I eat it for like 4 days. This particular soup I love so much that I made it back to back. So I practically had it for like probably 10 days in a row because I finished it and I was like, oh, I have to make it again. Now you could add a potato to it to make it even more creamy. You could add, I'm just thinking what else you could add to it. You could add some greens at the end if you wanted to add some pea sprouts. I think they would be lovely as a garnish. I don't think I have any in the refrigerator, but pea sprouts would be a lovely garnish. Today, we're just going to garnish it. She suggests that you use a smoky chili powder. And many of you might not own a smoky chili powder. So what I would do is I would just get chili powder out of my cabinet and put it in a little skillet and roast it a little bit. And that would give it its kind of smoky taste. Or you could use smoky paprika. I am going to use something that is so special that it almost sent me over the moon when I opened the jar because I had never had it before. It is from Rancho Gordo. And as you know, because I talk about it all the time, I'm part of a bean club. And they always put with the 6 pounds of beans that you get every quarter, you get a little surprise. A surprise could be Mexican oregano, could be fairy dust, it could be red crimson popcorn. Well, recently I got Castillo Spanish pimento. And I had not opened it until I made this soup. And I was like, I wonder if this is a smoky tasting. And this spice, oh my gosh, if you could just, again, it is so smoky and it's called Castillo Spanish pimento. And so again, you could use smoked paprika in your soup if you don't have this particular. I know none of you have this unless you're in the Bean Club. And if you want to order it, you could easily order it online from Rancho Gordo. But it is so fun to be turned on to a new spice. And I've been using it now a lot. And it also really changes the soup, like in a lot of ways. So the garnishing is going to be very important to the soup. Now, this is finally coming to a boil, but we really need it to boil. So we're going to leave everything alone here now, and we're going to kind of clean up a little bit. Wendy, now is the perfect moment for the questions while I just rinse off things that we need to be rinsed off.
Okay, let me go back. So, let's see. The question about the water actually was about the date syrup, like the soup, the water and the dates, and how long would that last in the fridge? And mine usually lasts like 2 to 3 weeks. Yours too?
Yeah, well, is
Yeah.
someone talking about the date paste, or they're just
Yeah,
talking about the date paste lasts a couple weeks in the fridge.
right.
And you could always freeze it. You could make some and freeze some. That works.
And
But
just date water, the date water you
oh,
were
the
talking
date water, I would just put those in an ice cube tray and put them in the freezer, just like the soup stock,
Yeah,
the big, like the stock cubes that you got me, the big super
right,
cubers.
exactly.
I
I
mean,
use
You could put it in that. I actually would put it in a little ice cube tray, and then you could put it in, make ice cubes out of it, and then you could pour seltzer water over top and put some berries and make. Like I said, it's kind of fun to make like a mock. I'm always looking for like what is. I don't really have alcohol so much, so I'm always kind of trying to figure out how do I make a little fancy drink that has bubbles and a
Right.
little bit of color, and so that would be super fun to do that with that water.
Yeah. Cool. And so in the fridge, just keeping it in the fridge, it's just a few days.
Yes, it will be
Yeah.
just fine. And like I said, Wendy, when you make marinara
Yeah.
and you sometimes put a carrot into it to kind of balance out the acidity, and sometimes, or you're making a Thai dinner and it calls for a little added sugar in it. Sometimes I put a whole date in something, and sometimes I just use that water
Yeah.
because just don't throw it out is all I'm telling you to do. Come up with your own idea. Put it in your coffee. I don't know, but just don't throw it out.
Sounds good. And Mitchell dates are entirely fine in the pie crust. You don't necessarily need the neglet door.
No, no, no. I just would mention the neglet door because they're cheaper.
Right.
When we used to shop up the street there, Wendy, the health food store way up on 80th Street, and they always had Deglet Nor on sale. For some reason, they always had Deglet Nor on sale. So I would just scoop those up because sometimes they'd be half price, but they're harder. So they really need soaking, like major. They're not like medjool dates.
Cool. And there was a question about cooking on the stove more, I'll just read it to you. Just cooking on the stove, is it better for flavors in soups than the Vitamix? But I never really make my soup in the Vitamix. Do you?
Never. I've never made a soup in the Vitamix. You have to cook the soup unless you're eating raw vegetables.
Well, the
I mean,
Vitamix heats things up. I mean, you can keep it on long enough so that it heats things
I
up.
can't imagine. I just can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine it unless you're eating some kind of cold soup or something. If like a cucumber avocado soup, like if we had plant-based yogurt and cucumbers and avocado,
It
that
may
could
have
go right
meant,
into the.
the
But
questioner may have meant the Instant Pot, and I do both. Carol only cooks on the stovetop, I'll just say, but I sometimes use an Instant Pot and sometimes a stovetop. I'm just whipping through these, Carol, because
and
we
it's
had.
super. And let's just keep it straight, Wendy, because you're very good at the Instapot. And I have my friend Sherry here in town. She has the Instapot and she cooks beans in like an hour and a half. And I cook beans overnight, like for a long time, for hours. But the thing is that I've never been good at the Instapot. I just don't know how to be good at it. So it's not that I don't like it. It's just that I'm not good at it. And so I don't use it because I'm not good at it. Now, maybe if I practiced, I would be good at it.
I'm
But
laughing.
all the buttons overwhelm me. Like I'm just,
I
and I
understand.
think all I need here is gas or just a flame, and I'm just set. And I don't know. And I also, am I wasting time? Yes, maybe, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not watching the beans cook. I'm doing laundry. I'm doing whatever. The beans are cooked. It's like bread. The bread doesn't take a long time. It does take a long time, but you're not doing it. You're not watching it every minute.
Yes, of course. Yes, and now there's the conversation about the Vitamix. Yes, it does make soups, just for the record, meaning you can heat it long enough, but it's not the preferred way for our chef Carol. And then there's a question on whether you prefer water to vegetable broth for soup. I know you already said you can use them interchangeably, but anything you want to add on that?
Well, I mean, broth is always going to give you more flavor. Okay. That's just plain and simple over water. But this is what I like about this recipe. It's just water. She doesn't ask for stock. If you read the comments on the New York Times, like all the people said, oh, well, I added broth. Well, of course you can add broth. There's no reason. But sometimes I don't have broth. So just water out of the sink. I want it to be fast and easy. So use the water out of the sink. It's okay.
Right.
It's always going to give you more flavor to add the broth. Always.
Yes. So I do want to say, because we're getting quite a few comments on this. Indeed, the Vitamix can heat things up to a point where they can make a soup. And the participant who asked about it makes a tomato soup, so like a really simple soup. And Vitamix has recipes that they offer
Ah.
in their little booklets of how to make soups. They tend to be very, very simple. But I tend to use the stove, and I know you tend to use the stove.
Well, it's learn something every day, Wendy, right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
whoever knows, they want you to be using that Vitamix all the time.
It's true.
And honestly, I love my Vitamix. I earned my Vitamix. You know, like took me years to sink in the $300 for the Vitamix. But I sometimes don't even like using it because it's hard to dig things out, you
Mm.
know? And so but they want you to use the Vitamix, so they probably would have you making every meal in the Vitamix. It makes total sense to me now.
Sweet. That's it on questions.
Okay,
It all
awesome.
looks delicious. I think you have us sort of watering our mouths with the lemon and the thought of the lemon and the cauliflower. It's just such a lovely spring dish, winter and spring. It's perfect for transitioning.
Oh, and I just realized that I never finished my thought earlier when I was talking about the things I love at this time of year, whether you're in anywhere, I think, really anywhere in this country right now, you have access to Myers lemons, which really do come from California. And we have the most beautiful blood oranges right now,
Right.
which I often, maybe in March of 2020, when we first started, or April or May, somewhere in the spring, that first year, Wendy, that we were cooking, I probably made an orange fennel salad, and I probably used blood oranges because they're so beautiful that they're hard not to. They look like wine and red and orange inside, and they're so magical to open up. I find that they're even more magical to open up than a pomegranate. So nice to have fruit that kind of surprises you when you open it.
I agree.
So anyway, this soup is boiling and I want it to boil and I'm kind of have it on very high. If it were on the gas flame, I'd probably have it on medium heat, but I'm kind of speeding it along. And we're going to move, if we're done where we are done, you said we're done with those questions. We're going to go back to the dessert. Okay, so I know we're all over the place a little bit, going back and forth, but it's my back and forth because I'm trying to make it all happen within a time frame that we are allowed. Because Wendy and I could be here forever with you all day, but we're not going to be because everyone has precious time. So we are next going to do for our very beautiful chocolate decadent mousse tart. We're going to make a jam that goes inside. And I've made a jam like this so many times when I'm desperate for just a jam. So you don't have to limit this idea to just the mousse tart. So I basically am starting here, and let me just get the recipe in front of me so I know what I'm doing. She says that we need 125 grams of raspberries. They could be fresh raspberries or frozen. I'm using frozen ones because it seems perfect for what we're doing. Why use the fresh ones? And the fresh ones really aren't quite in season. I have some fresh ones, but they're not in abundance. They're mostly still coming from Mexico, even if you buy the organic ones. So we're using the frozen ones. And we need to have 2 tablespoons of chia seeds into our, what is technically 1 cup. 1 cup of, what are we having? 1 cup of frozen raspberries. My raspberries have been out for a little while, so they're all thawed out. Okay, and I've just put in the 2 tablespoons. Now, if your raspberries are frozen and you really need to make this right away, this little sauce, then I would put it on the stove and just bring your raspberries to under the gas and get them softened. Now, this is eventually when you let it sit for a few minutes, it's going to, just like chia pudding, the chia expands and it's going to thicken up. But we need to let that sit. We need to let that sit and leave it aside. We also need a sweetener for this because we're basically making a jam. And she suggests that we use 1 to 2 tablespoons of any kind of sweetener. I recommend using date sugar or a date paste. I didn't have any more date paste in the refrigerator. So what I did was I took out 2 medjool dates, put them in a little teeny bit of water. I took out their seeds and I have them sitting here. And I actually just am going to roughly, I kind of have chopped them up, but I'm kind of just making a quick date paste on my cutting board here because you don't always have the things you need in your refrigerator or freezer, but you need to have that thing. Do you know the other day I was making a carrot cake for my friend and it needed applesauce. And I went to my pantry and I always have a big jar of applesauce and I have those little snacking. I never am out of applesauce. And suddenly I needed a cup of applesauce. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have any applesauce. And I'm in the middle of this cake. And what am I going to do? Well, I had like 4 apples. So I immediately just peeled them, boiled them, made my own applesauce. Now, you don't really want to do that in the middle of a recipe, but sometimes you don't have the thing that you need. So you have to figure out, how am I going to get it? Now, if you're living in New York, you can run to the corner of the bodega and just get what you need because everything you need is on the corner store. But I don't live near a bodega. I wish I still did. And I basically just think, oh my gosh, I have to get in the car and go. I'm not going to do that. So I have to figure out, like, how am I going to manage? So I have probably, she says 1 to 2 tablespoons of sweetener. I'm sure I have 2 tablespoons of sweetener right here with the date paste. And that's going to get mixed in thoroughly. And that is going to be our jam. Now, that could be jam for any day of the week, okay? You could do this for your toast in the morning if you so desire. You could dip your apples in this wonderful mixture. It's so beautiful. And we'll taste it because we want to make sure that I haven't made it overly sweet. And we're just going to taste it here. We have this. And I'm worried. I'm boiling the soup so crazy. I'm hoping that it just doesn't boil over. Okay, it's happening. It's really happening. Okay, we're going to taste this to make sure it tastes good. Okay. It needs a little more setting aside. So we're going to we'll let it sit here for a few minutes. That's what we're going to do. We're going to let it sit here, but it's definitely sweet enough. I put those, you don't even see the dates in here anymore because I, again, soaked them a little bit. They were kind of mushy. I blended in. There's no big chunks. And look, we've got jam instantly with no sugar in it, just dates. So that's a good thing. Okay,
Carole,
so we're gonna, yes.
you ever use blueberries?
For this particular dessert,
Mm.
I have not. But you know, if someone says, what kind of cake do you want for your birthday or what do you want, you know, you're having a special event, to me, chocolate and raspberries is like dying and going to heaven. So I love raspberries with chocolate. I'm sure blueberries would be great. I'm sure you could do it with strawberries. Strawberries and chocolate are also a marriage made in heaven. But we're doing raspberries because that was the original recipe. And it's so delicious. You cannot go wrong. So, but if you want to use blueberries, you should try blueberries. I think it would be fine. You know, all berries I think are created pretty equal as far as you know, nutrients and antioxidants, and you know, I feel like when all the berries are created pretty equal, and it's really not the season right now. We're starting to get strawberries, which is pretty awesome. They're coming from California. So now we need to make our chocolate mousse. And I really love this chocolate mousse. Why? Because it's not made with more nuts. We already have nuts in the crust. And a lot of mousses are made with the cashews so that, you know, it's all creamy. So this is a tofu-based mousse. Maybe many of you have made a tofu. There's so many different recipes for this exact kind of thing. You know, it makes me nervous when this is boiling so much. Like, it feels like something's rapidly boiling hot next to me. and sometimes I like want to move away like this, but it's okay. It's cooking away, and it's cooking away. So we're going to come over here and we're going to move this thing, and we are going to make our chocolate filling. So the kind of tofu that you want to use is a silken tofu. You can find that in the refrigerated section, just like you buy extra firm or firm. There is silken tofu that is in the refrigerator. I recommend actually always having some of this, what they call shelf stabled tofu, just in your pantry, because you never know when you're going to need something. Remember, I told you I don't have a bodega at the corner, can't just run out. So having a few boxes of this in your pantry is always great because it doesn't need to be in the refrigerator. And what is good about it is that it's just on the shelf, and if I need to make a quick mayonnaise or a quick something, I don't know, something with tofu, this is awesome to have. It is called Mori-nu, MoriNnu. It is all silken, and you're going to get to the shelf in the grocery store and say, oh, there's a blue box and an orange box and a red box, and there's so many kinds, and they're all saying silken. Which one do I need? Well, I've kind of figured it out a little bit, but you can also go to their website, and on their website, it actually tells you this one is good for dips and things. This one's good for desserts. Honestly, I think they're all the same. I think you could, if you bought this one that I buy is called Firm, and it is, I found, the best one for desserts. But if you used it as a making for ricotta, it would be great. If you used it for an artichoke dip, it would be great. I don't understand why there are so many different color boxes. Some they call extra firm. In this kind of tofu that is shelf stable, it's all silken and it all will work, okay? If someone has a insight, beside a marketing insight, to why they have so many different kinds when they all seem very close. Now, that's not true when you're buying it in the refrigerator and it says extra firm and firm. Extra firm really is extra firm. But this brand that all says silken is pretty silken. I hope I haven't confused anyone. I just want to tell you, when you go to the shelf, that you might be confused. So we're going to, I drained that. I had 2 boxes and it's 21 ounces. And I actually put it here, and look at how much water came out, almost like a cup and a half. And that's just going to go in here like that. I probably, look at, I make it go all over the counter. Not very good. And I'm probably going to have too much filling because remember I told you I have just a 7-inch tart. But this chocolate mousse could go into a cup and you could just eat it tomorrow. Anything, you don't have to even put it in a crust. And I want to just clean this up. I don't like having this messy like this. Okay. So we put 2 boxes, which is about 21 ounces of tofu. And we're supposed to be melting the chocolate, and we haven't done that. So back here, I only have 1 burner. So we're going to get this burner on. And we are going to come over here. I've got all this right here. And I have the things that have to go into here. Now we need chocolate. We need chocolate chips. You could get a bar of chocolate, that would be fine. But just chocolate chips are fine. We need 225 grams of chocolate. It's best to weigh that out. I would say it's probably, I don't know, I'm going to say it's probably like a cup and a little bit. But you want to buy a chocolate that you really love eating. That's going to be really delicious. Now, I used to use Lily's brand. In the recipe, I've kind of given you a handful, literally a handful of chip ideas, what chips to buy. You want to stay away from the chips that have dairy. You want a high percentage of chocolate, 60, 70, 80. And you want to try to look for a chip that has no processed sugars in it, okay? And ultimately, Lily's is a good brand. There is a brand called, I wrote it down, Bone App Sweet. that is just dates. That's the only, it's got cocoa, butter, and chocolate and dates as a sweetener. But I find that the fancier date chips are very expensive. So that's going to be up to you which chips you choose. But this particular one, I love this brand of Hue Chocolate, HUE, and it's a baking chocolate. They advertise no refined sugar, no cane sugar, no alcohols, no erythritol, no sodium, no soy, no palm oil. But it does have some sugar in it. A coconut, a little bit of coconut sugar is what it says. It has organic cacao and unrefined coconut sugar and organic. But we're not using so much. And remember, Wendy, we used to love to get a bar of Hue chocolate, remember? And
It's
we
my
would just
favorite.
eat like one little tiny square. Like we would
Exactly.
buy the bar and we'd be like, we can't have it any more than this one square of chocolate.
Exactly. Now I do get the chocolate that is just made with dates, but it's in limited quantities, and I've never even knew that they had the date chocolate chips, but they sound
They
expensive.
do. And David has been baking, and our friend David, and he gets the Just Date brand. It's a
Oh yeah.
brand that makes the syrup, and I think he buys them at Fairway, and it's chocolate chips. And I don't have that in my store here. I'd have to buy it online. I mean, we have the Just Date brand for the pomegranate syrup and the date syrup, but nobody's selling just date chocolate chips where I live. But it's okay. Why is it okay? Because you can order the things online if you want. But just get what is easily accessible and affordable when you're buying your chips. Wendy, we're almost like out of time. It goes so fast. I'm just looking and it goes so fast. But we had so many introductions that before I know it, it's already 4:15.
It's your birthday
4:15
party.
for me, 6:15 for you, some other time for somebody around the world, a different time, but we have to wrap up and I have a lot to do. So I have to stop talking. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon. I'm not going to stop talking, but I'm going to start elaborating. So I'm going to put espresso powder. Okay. I love putting coffee into chocolate anything. This is an instant espresso powder and it can go right in. Okay. And then I think we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we're going to put in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay. And that's going to go in here like that. Then it calls for maple syrup. And we want to be careful. Maple syrup is an okay thing. It's still processed, but it's not bad. It's not great. It's not great. It's not on the great side of dates, but it's not on the worst side. I'd say it's kind of like in the middle as far as a sweetener. And usually when I see baking recipes, I immediately cut it in half. Sometimes it will ask for a half a cup or 3/4 cup, and I just chop it in half immediately. This particular recipe says a 1/4 cup, and I've measured out a 1/4 cup. That's 4 tablespoons. And we're going to add a little bit at a time and see how much do we really need? How much can we get away with? And what I want to do is check the chocolate back here. And I didn't tell you, but I put a pot on the stove. I put some water in it, and I put a bowl over the water. So I made my own double boiler. Sorry that I'm not able to just show it to you right here because I can't show it to you right here because I only have one gas burner. The chocolate is melting fast. The beauty of this particular Hue chocolate is that it's silky smooth and it's so rich and delicious. It's so good. It is so good. And I love it for drizzling. Like it makes nice clean lines when you're having to drizzle. Now let's just get a little spatula. I think I've used all my spatulas. And we're going to get this going. We're almost there. We just need the chocolate to melt. It is melting very fast. We should have done this right away. I know we're back here, but this is okay. It's melting quickly. And ultimately, the chocolate's going to have to get hardened in the refrigerator. But let's just get everything. That needs maybe literally 1 more minute. We can start getting this going here. We'll just And we could add, let's say we know that we have a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, and I'm going to start with the 2 tablespoons because maybe that's going to be enough. Again, the reason that I'm doing this is I find recipes often have way too much sugar, and you don't need that much sugar. And 2, based on the kind of chocolate chips you have, maybe you need a little more sweetener, maybe you need a little less based on the kind of chips you have. Okay, so this should be ready. This soup is boiling like crazy. It's going to boil away soon. I'm going to taste one of the carrots. It looks like the cauliflower. You can kind of tell when things are done. It's done. I'm going to lower it a little bit. So I'm not boiling like crazy. We're going to get our little chocolate, get a little oven mitt. And, okay, this is ready. And how I'm going to show it to you. I'm taking it off the little double boiler, and the chocolate is all melted. You can see that it's all melted. And ultimately, if you were at home, you probably would want this just to cool off a little bit more, a little slightly, but we don't have that kind of time. We are moving forward. It just means that it's going in there kind of warm, which is okay. It needs to be warm. If you let it cool off entirely, it would become a solid block again. So you do want it to be warm, but not hot, which is kind of what we've just done. And then we're going to blend it. You have to own these little spatulas. I don't know what I would do without them. They just go into every little place, little crevices, little places. I find that they're the perfect thing. So let's just get this going. And you really very much, I keep opening it, closing it, because I see some white bits, some white tofu bits on the bottom. And you really want to almost think about, I want to over blend it. Think about that to yourself. Like, when is it done? When is it done mixing? When I think I've over blended. Because I'm looking on the sides here and I see little white bits, and it's really kind of making me a little crazy. And it looks beautiful. It's like super beautiful. Can you see how pretty that is? I mean, like, look at how pretty it is. Look.
It's gorgeous.
It's so pretty. Like, Wendy, you could lick it out of this bowl. You don't even have to like put it anywhere. But it has
lickable.
If you don't mix it at the bottom, you just don't want white dots anywhere, okay? That's why I'm telling you, you cannot overmix it, okay? Oh, and we need to taste it anyway. I think it's plenty sweet. I've left almost 1.5 tablespoons of syrup behind. So basically I put like 2 big tablespoons in, and I actually think it's just fine. It doesn't need any more sweetener. Again, this is how you have to taste things, and let's just, it's plenty sweet, plenty sweet. Does not need any added more syrup. Again, I've written out the recipe as the person who wrote it up intended, but you always have to interpret how what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Okay, so now we're going to go to the refrigerator. We're going to get the little tart thing, and it's gotten very hard. And I am going to actually pop it out of this. I find that before I fill it, popping it out, you see, so you can see how beautiful it already is. Again, if you just use a pie pan, you're never popping it out because you don't have a removable bottom. So I'm keeping the metal on the bottom as a solid piece. It's okay to cut on that. Okay, so we're going to put that away. And we're going to now line the tart with raspberry jam. So we want to get an offset spatula. That would be ideal. And we're going to get this offset spatula. And Wendy, while I'm blending the soup, you'll be able to do your end of the thing announcements, okay? I just don't want you But you have to be careful now at this point when you're doing this, because I've taken the frame off of the brownie, off the tart. So I can't be aggressively pushing it, right? Because if I aggressively push it, I might break the side wall, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so this is the part that where I start to drool, literally, because I love chocolate and raspberries. Just love so much. And you want this raspberry to be even, just like we made the crust even all the way around. You don't want big chunks of it anywhere. I'm going to have a little bit left over. That's really okay, because remember, I have a little tiny bit of dough left, and I'm going to end up making later just a tiny tart later. And maybe I'll bring it to my very good friend here who loves chocolate, David LaFell. He loves chocolate so much that he dreams of having chocolate sometimes. So this is the tart. I'm moving it. I'm trying to keep the plate clean. Okay, it's a beautiful plate. It was recently given to me. I love it so much because it's flat. And having a flat dessert plate is great because most plates have divots. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get another spatula. So you can never have enough spatulas. I mean, I think I've dirtied like 5 spatulas. And we're going to put this mousse right into here. And again, I'm going to have a little bit left over because my pan is a much smaller pan. You can see how beautiful the chocolate is. And you could literally just do this into a little ramekin and have dessert. And we're going to get back our offset spatula, and we're going to clean that a little bit. Having one of these is pretty awesome. It is a baker's tool, an offset spatula. You see offset because it's not flat. It has a divot. And then we have a lot of filling in here. We're just going to smooth it out and go make it look really beautiful. And ultimately, this tart should sit in the refrigerator for 4 hours. Okay, because the chocolate needs to get hard, right? So that we're able to cut a solid piece. And you could make a little pattern, you can circle, you could do whatever you want. Ultimately, I just make sure that it's in there evenly. I felt like it was kind of bumpy in the middle. And really, that is our tart. We're going to serve it with fruit along this on the top. We're not going to cut it today, but just for now. So if you wanted to put this away, and you could put it in the freezer, literally, just like this. I would not put any extra fruit on it until you're ready to serve, okay? And I have gathered a plate full of berries. You could use strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, a combination, whatever you want. You could just put raspberries all along the edge. Today, I'm just going to put them just on the edge, right? We already have the raspberry filling, right? And I'm just showing you can go all the way around. Again, you could do that with strawberries. I often like to make my fruit a little bit shiny, and I would put a little bit of apricot jam and toss it. But in this situation, having plain fruit is just fine. And if you didn't want to put the fruit on the actual tart itself, you could serve the fruit on the plate, cut up all the berries and do whatever you want, and just have a side. But it's very nice to have something very beautiful. I'm not going to quite go all the way around because we need to finish. It's important that we finish everything. And like I said, I have a little bit of chocolate left. That will be for later, for the tiny little one. And Wendy, we're going to blend the soup and try to finish up. But I just want to make sure, does anyone have questions about the chocolate tart?
I don't see any questions so far, but you are getting a lot of comments about how mouth-watering it looks, delicious, fabulous dessert. Carole, it really does look like a work of art. It looks absolutely beautiful and looks like a wonderful dessert. What a great way of celebrating our 5th. And for everybody joining us, our collective 5th anniversary of doing the show. Absolutely beautiful.
And don't forget, everyone. I know I said it already once, but just please don't forget that you really want to put it in the refrigerator, and you want it to be in there for like 4 hours. You want it to solid, because otherwise, when you cut it, if you were to cut it right now, it's all gonna kind of come out with the knife and it's not gonna make a nice clean cut. So you have to get it solid, and it will become solid in the refrigerator. Okay. So
Do you
that
wanna
part is super
the
important.
soup?
Now, Wendy, if you want, I don't want to make noise over your announcements, so I'm just going to blend the soup and we're going to try to finish up, and then you can run through the announcements. Okay? I don't think it's good for you to make announcements when I am blending a soup. I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong, but let's just blend the soup really quickly. Very hot. And it's going to take a few minutes to blend here because we're not in the situation of putting it in the Vitamix. But it will happen. And I want this soup to be super velvety, really creamy. And that's why I would add a potato too. One potato would make it super, super, or a handful of rice. That's a good creamy technique. A potato or a handful of rice. And I am just blending. I'm going to go ahead and add my lemon zest while we're talking, right? And I'm also going to add my 2 tablespoons. It's dripping here. And I have a measure that is actually 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. That's going in here right now, right? And we are going to continue. Wendy, if you want to try to do the announcements, I'm afraid it's going to be noisy, but maybe Jim could mute me for a minute. Maybe he could do that, and then you could make the announcements.
Yes, I think that's exactly what we'll do. So for everyone, we are at the 6:30 mark. If you need to leave, of course, Carol and I and all of us at Plant Power Metro really appreciate your coming and joining us. And thank you so much for joining us on this particular show, which is celebratory. Carol's made a tart for, well, she'll enjoy it, but we've enjoyed watching it, at least I have. And thank you very much for celebrating with us. For those of you who can stay, I do have a list of announcements for events that Plant Powered Metro is doing for the month of March, and where are we? We're in March still. Yeah, please go to our website, and let me just see if I can quickly grab our announcement. So tomorrow, there is a live presentation in Hicksville, New York on how to reverse diabetes. It's a presentation and a dinner. Tuesday night, the 26th, there's a women's wellness and food panel or discussion, nutrition's impact on issues below the belt, which should be very interesting. This is session 4 of a 4-part series we've been doing on women's wellness. So please join us online for that. There are a few other in-person events with Dr. Nandita Shah, who's visiting here from India. And then there's another virtual class on March 27th. It's a Food for Life class called Plant-Powered Nutrition for Families. And this too is session 4 out of 4. It's from noon to 2, so it's not an evening class. Do join us for that, particularly if you have families. We have a couple other live events in Rego Park, New York, also discussing lifestyle diseases, and a dinner social on the Lower East Side. And for those of you who enjoy tuning in virtually or can be in person, also at the JCC Manhattan, it's a new event called Your Spring Toolkit for Achieving a Healthy Weight with Dr. David Dunaev. This is a hybrid event, so those of you who need to be online, please join us for that. This is on April 1st at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you can be there in person, please join us in person. So again, thank you everyone for coming. For those of you who want to keep the show going and have the means to do so, please do consider a donation or donate to Plant Powered Metro New York. We all volunteer here, and the money goes to keeping all of our programs going and moving forward. So please do donate. And let's see, you can find all the details on our website. And Carole can be reached at carole@thevegievanguard.com. And let's see, our next class will be on April 6th. April 6th. I won't be here, but our producer, Jim Spellos, will be taking my place, and he's behind the scenes anyway, so he'll be in front of the scenes next time. And a big thank you to Jim. Love having you on the team. Big thank you to David Bowles, who helps us out. And thank you to the entire team and you, the people who are watching us. So thank you very much. Carole, how's it looking?
Wendy, I blended the soup with the immersion blender. It works out fine for the demo, but I honestly would rather put it in the Vitamix. Or in a blender will be much smoother, but for our purposes, it's perfect. I put a little bit, it tastes perfect. It didn't need any extra anything. I put the lemon juice, the lemon zest, and now I have topped it with some cilantro. I sprinkled a little bit, not too much, just a little bit of the red Castillo smoked chili. And what I like doing is giving it a little kind of swirl now, which kind of makes the little powder go in a little beautiful pattern. If you can see, I don't want to put it at an angle too much because but it's going to be so fantastic. Again, you don't have the Castillo Rancho Gore spice. Use smoked paprika, use chili powder that you've maybe roasted in a pan. But we are done. I am so happy that we are starting our, another season. I thank both you and Jim and David so much. I thank all of you for coming time and time again. And I think next month we're doing tortillas of some sort because I've just ordered red masa and I might go out of my skin having red masa. So one has blue and white and yellow, but I've never had red. So we might be making red tortillas and some kind of filling in April.
Sounds absolutely delicious. So thank you everyone again. Thank you for celebrating with us, and we will see you on April 6th. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Come on down, step right in. Carole's Kitchen, where we begin. See what's cooking, something new. Plant-based power just for you. Delicious meals on